my first question to the panelists. I think it would be important for us to hear your understanding of the whole notion of leadership and how that understanding has influenced what you do here at Villanova.
We didn't decide who would go first.
No, we didn't decide who would go first.
Go ahead, yeah. All right.
So I'm Kathy again. So I gave that question a little thought before coming here because fortunately you gave us some of the questions ahead of time. Someone I know well says chance favors the prepared, so that's actually a great lesson of leadership. I feel like that being prepared for many contingencies and for a lot of things that may go as you think or may not go as you think, chance favors the prepared. But in terms of leadership, I teach in the leadership learning community, so that's working with freshmen each year. But one of the things that I found both as I talk with students about leadership, but also in my own life is, and I do feel like this is probably very female to say this, but I believe leadership is very much about relationship building. I think that at the end of the day, leadership, if you're trying to inspire a shared vision, trying to work toward a common goal, trying to accomplish something, that is done most effectively if you're in relationship with the people that you're seeking to accomplish that goal with or working on that task with. And that creating a team atmosphere, team approach where people know each other and like each other. I remember once I heard a talk about leadership and the speaker observed that sometimes you hear, oh, the person in charge doesn't have to be liked, they just have to be in charge. And the speaker observed, like, who wants to follow somebody they don't like? And I thought, that's right. People want to feel known and be known. And so I could say a lot else about leadership, but I know other panelists have things to say as well. But for me, I would say at its most fundamental level, leadership is about building relationships, creating relationships, building relationships, and then working together to accomplish whatever that common task is in an effort to have everyone feel important, included, and again, known, which I think is kind of this basic human need that we all have.
I think that in terms of my vision of leadership, I serve as a guide. My role is to utilize the talents and abilities of the people that I work with to best accomplish the goals of the organization. So I'm not telling them what to do, but I'm managing the gifts that they bring to the organization and try to accomplish to the best of our ability what the mission and the vision is.
I'm going to talk a little bit more kind of visually because, as you all know, that's kind of the world I live in, visual and writing and things like that. And I would very much echo exactly kind of what they were saying. I was at a retreat recently, and we had to bring an artifact. And they said, bring an artifact that says about your leadership style. And I thought, oh, no, I have to tell you, I really hate it when they have you do that kind of stuff. And I was out walking, and I thought, I know what that is. And for me, what it was, remember lava lamps?
Oh, yes.
You know how you have this, and then you come up in here, and you have all the lava, and there's the colors, and all those pieces. And I thought, that's really how I see leadership, is I see my job as kind of the base to hold it, make sure the electricity is coming in, get the right lava in there, make sure I've got it all in, and to create that excitement so that people then come together and all the lava with different folks, different pieces, and they come up and create this beautiful kind of whatever they are creating, whether it's a written piece, whether it's something visual, whether it's just coming up with a strategic plan, it is really how they come together. And for me, I'm a huge believer in cross-functionality, which means that there's not just one person that you work for. You work with a lot of other people, and together that we're so much stronger than when we're on our own, or whether you're just in one line item. It doesn't have to be as hierarchical. So for me, I thought that really gave a sense of how I see leadership and what my role in it is, because at the end of the day, any of the leaders you see are only as good as the people who work for us. And that's really key. And if we've done our job, we get really smart, really good, really amazing people, and then you're able to accomplish whatever vision is put forth.
I totally agree with that, and I like your lava lamp analogy. And coming from the technical side of things, my specialty is actually heat transfer. So I could actually explain to Ann all the equations that go into how you would design that lava lamp. And so I could come from the technical background, and she could come from the visual communications
We have
background.
to take it on the road.
And we could put it together and make it work really well. And again, that kind of puts in what leadership to me also is all about. And we're saying we're learning from leaders today, but I think every one of us here up on the stage could learn just as much from you.
Absolutely.
And that's what leadership is all about. It's not necessarily for you to be quiet and listen from us, but it's for us to listen to the people we're working with and understand what talents everybody brings. And you see leaders sometimes who are afraid to work with people who are smarter than them or more talented than them, and that's the wrong approach to have. You want to put together the strongest team that you have and let them do what they're talented at, and don't be intimidated by working with people. You want to put together a very strong team like that. And each one of us, everybody in this room is going to have a different approach to leadership, and that's okay. But to me, what's important is being authentic to who you are. Nobody here can manage like I do. I can't manage like any of these other talented women, but I have to be true to myself and work. And you can take bits and pieces from what other people have done, but you need to meld that together into your own style that you're comfortable with. And when you're authentic, I think, then you can be a stronger leader.
You want to go first?
Sure. Again, I think we all have similar viewpoints of this. I think sometimes people think a leader is someone who's made it into the top quarter or top third or whatever it is in the organizational chart, and so you're a leader. But I can tell you I've met plenty of people in the top quarter of the organizational chart that I didn't really want to follow. So to me, leadership is having the collection of characteristics that it takes to have people want to follow you. And it doesn't matter what title you have. It doesn't even really matter what your job is. If people want to follow you, you are a leader. The trick is to develop those characteristics that help people want to follow you. So that piggybacks on really what everybody else has said. You need to be able to gather your lava, pick the right lava, and then let them develop their own end product. You need people to trust you. You need to be an expert in what you're talking about. You need to be the resource for your team. They need to know they can go to you and say, I need this, or I need that, or I don't understand this, or I can't get past this. You need to be a problem solver. You absolutely have to have good relationships. I think someone mentioned that, the bosses, you don't have to be liked, you just have to be bossy. Well, I don't want to follow somebody who's that way, and most people don't. So if you're going to be a leader, you have to be somebody that people want to follow. So if you start from there and develop those characteristics, the rest of it will come together.
Very nice.
Deb?
So I'm going to recast the lava lamp. I'm really enjoying my lava moment, I have to say.
I think that's becoming our metaphor
I
for
think
the
so,
day,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We have one in my office.
Well, we'll visit that.
Yeah.
Leadership means a lot of things. We have individual leaders, we have organizational leaders. It means a lot of things. So to answer this question, I'm going to frame this around organizational leadership at Villanova. Veritas, Unitas, Caritas. We see this in Villanova everywhere we look and everything we experience. And I believe it exists in my unit. We'll see if they nod their heads back there, right? No pressure. I view our college, our new college, as a place where individuals bring their intellect, they bring their energy, and they bring their caring and their service heart, their servant heart, and they bring it to work every day. When you put all of us together, we have something really unique. We have this bundle of energy and intellect and caring that needs to be directed towards something. It doesn't need to be, it can just sit there and exist, but we're not going to affect the kinds of changes that we're trying to affect in our new college. The changes we're trying to affect are transformation of our students, to give them a transformational experience. So as the leader of our college, it's my responsibility to take that wonderful energy and intellect and caring and direct it, keep directing it toward the outcome that we're trying to accomplish. And in my opinion, that's what leadership is about. Thank you.
Wow. It's so wonderful to sit here and listen to them each articulate their own notion of leadership and how it fits, and then to see the similarities in everything they said. This next question sort of builds on some of the things you said, Ellen. What do you think are the most important characteristics or the vital characteristics of being a leader? And let's make it very specific, being a woman leader here at Villanova. What is it that you really need to be successful?
Well, I'll start off since I sort of used it as my theme. There are a lot of things, and I don't think they're always the same thing for every person, and they're certainly not the same thing for every situation. So when I think about when I graduated college a few years ago, to where I am now, and how did I get here? So I've given some thought to that since I was asked to be on the panel. And I realized that a lot of it has to do with confidence. And, you know, I hear people say, fake it till you make it, but you can't rely on that. The way you build self-confidence is to actually know what you're talking about and know what you're doing. So to be a leader, you have to be a life learner. You have to be willing to learn new things, to take in new information, to learn from the people around you. And that's not just the people above you, it's the people next to you, it's the people organizationally below you, it's people you supervise. You need to learn from other people all of the time. You need to be an expert in what you're doing. People have to trust that you know where you're going and what you're talking about. So don't rely on the fake it till you make it. That gets you this far. You have to actually make it, which means you have to put a lot of effort in. You have to keep learning. You have to never say, all right, I'm here, it's done. I'm an associate vice president now. I've been vice president 2 other times, and I never said, well, all right, I've arrived, done. You can't sit on what you know, but you have to keep learning. So to me, you have to have that self-confidence, but you can't be self-confident until you know what you're talking about. So to me, that's the starting point. I'm sure others have other ideas about that, but you have to start there.
Yeah. I'm going to follow up a bit on her piece. Can you hear me okay? Of confidence, because I do think that's absolutely true. And you absolutely have to know your job. You need to be great at what you do. I mean, when I've looked at all these questions, you know, what is it for a female leader? What is this? I'm like, I just want to do a really good job. But when you look at confidence, one of the things personally for me that really made a huge difference when I went from this place to this place, and it was actually for me when I went from Curtis Institute of Music to Carnegie Hall. While I was at Curtis, I got my executive MBA from Temple. And I thought, okay, I was a music major. So, you know, I thought, here I am in communication, maybe I need to know more. I went and did this MBA program on the weekends, worked full time. And you know what I did? I learned that I knew what I was doing just as well as everybody else in that class. I gained the confidence. I did the coursework, I worked hard, I got all the information, but I had truly thought that as I learned, okay, if I took a strategic planning course, that would make me. I'd go up there. Oh no, I'll take my accounting course, that'll make me. But at the end of the day, it was getting all the information and then having the confidence to say, I do know what I'm doing. I'm up in front of this group, and I'm actually better at it than many of the other people who have been in doing their MBAs and things like that. So the interesting part for me is that how do you get that confidence? How do you begin to really soar and flourish with it and make sure you're really, really good at your job? So just a personal piece about how that, for me, helped. Everybody can get confidence in a different ways. It doesn't mean you have to go get a degree or have to do any of these things. But I do think that's really, I feel so strongly about that. How do you gain that confidence and how do you feel good about yourself?
I'd like to tag on to what Ann and Ellen have said, and that I do agree that being secure in what you do is very important. I also do want to say that it's okay to say I don't know to something. And what you do, though, is you find out the resources, the people that can help you, or training or courses or mentors that will help you with I don't know. I like myself personally, I like to be the best at what I can be. That's how I operate. But in my field, in my office, oftentimes the students present issues or problems that just make me scratch my head. And I'll tell them, I don't know, but I will find out and I will get back to you. So being reliable and consistent in what you, the information you provide and the help that you provide is key, because others will see, okay, she's may not have all the answers, but I know that she will find the answer. And that's all they want. They want you ultimately to help them. Okay, so being competent is great, but it's also, you have to know that it's not a static thing. You have to continually work on increasing your knowledge and your skills and your abilities.
Yeah, and I would say, as you're trying to build up leadership, if you want to, you've got a goal in mind. You want to be this position. You want to get this. Try to think, what type of skills do I think the person who has that job needs? And then look, at your own skill set. What do I have? How do I get those skills? Well, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. But I don't know anything about this over here. Start thinking about how you would start getting those skills, and then start building up that. And if you're looking, for leadership, you get more confidence by exhibiting leadership. How do you get to be a leader? A lot of times it's by volunteering to take on tasks that people don't want to do. Everybody loves somebody who will volunteer to help, right? All of us would love people who would volunteer to help run initiatives, run programs, run different things. If you volunteer, you'll do that. I have faculty in my own department who've come into me and said, I want leadership experience. I want to do this. I'm like, great. Can you run this initiative? Can you try this? And then by doing smaller things, they start to build up more confidence, and then I have confidence in them that they can take on bigger pieces. So that's one way to do it, is just have the confidence to put yourself out there to try something. And as you're doing it, ask lots of questions and be confident that you can ask questions. Because I know sometimes, I've felt it myself as a woman, I don't always want to ask questions because I feel maybe it reveals I don't know something about this, and I don't want to reveal that. But everybody's got questions. Everybody is, nobody's perfect, right? All of us have to be able to ask questions. And when you're in a new position, when you're a new leader, the best thing you can do is ask all the questions you can and try to learn as much as possible. And I think people will respect you more if you just go in and start going, well, how do I approach this? How did you approach this? I had a situation last year as a new department chair. I needed to run an advisory board meeting. I'd never run an advisory board meeting. I didn't know anything about advisory boards or even what the advisory board was really supposed to do. So I started talking to other people. What do you do with your advisory board? How do you run your board? I talked to friends at other schools. I talked to people here. I talked to different types of advisory boards. And by getting all of that background information, I put together, well, I like this, I like this, I like this. I think these will work for what my style is. These other parts, they're great, they won't work for me, but I took bits and pieces and put it together just by asking lots of questions.
Want to go? Either way.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So very similar to what is just being said, there were actually three things that popped into my head. One is about initiative, which we've just been talking about. And I completely support and endorse what Amy just said about volunteering to do stuff. And I'm a doer, and even though I do like Doer's scotch, that's not what I mean. I like to do things, I like to be in the middle of things, and so then of course I also like other people who are doers. Now I always need the creative thinkers around too, because creativity is not always my strength, as there's many evidences of it in my life. But anyway, so sometimes like someone will say, well, I had, this great idea last year of X, and I think, oh my God, that was a fantastic idea. Like, what happened? And they said, well, it was just an idea. And so sometimes, like, you have a great idea. I do feel like Villanova is a place that there's a lot of room for autonomy and self-initiative, and if you're sitting there with whatever your position is in life, whether it's, you're a year out of college and you're a newer person in the professional world, or you're 30 years out of college and you've been in the professional world for longer, that I think if you've got a good idea, take it to someone, but then also feel free to run with it. I think sometimes people do not feel empowered to run with things, and I think that that's part of being a leader, is you become the champion of the idea. And I feel like Villanova is very much a place, I've spent a lot of years at Villanova, so most of my professional experience is in this setting, and I think it could be different in other settings, but Villanova is a place where things happen when there's a champion for that idea. And so if you have a really good idea, and you're floating it with some other people and teasing that out, and it is a good idea, sometimes the difference between it happening and not happening is being a champion. And then, as Amy said, you see somebody who can take an idea and run with it, then you think, oh, this is a person who has a lot to offer, and it both helps the person get confidence, but also then others turn to that person to involve them and engage them. The other thing I think is key is really loving the mission of the place where you are. If you're working at a place and the mission does not connect, it's why I left a law firm, in all honesty. Like, any day you're not happy at Villanova, go work at a law firm. That's what, it's like Happy Land here. So, so if you're working somewhere and you just don't connect with the mission, you don't identify at all with the mission, the values of the institution or the corporation or the business are not values that you share, you might be able to work there for a while, get a paycheck, but my guess is you're ultimately not going to climb that ladder and get to the top, because really advocating for the mission, living the mission, and again, it's the values of the mission. So a place like Villanova doesn't mean, you need to be Catholic or you need to be Christian, but it means that those values of unitas, veritas, caritas, of having a respectful community, of caring about each person. As a community, we cannot all flourish unless each of us flourishes. If that is something you resonate with, then you're buying into the mission here. If it's something that you really think, not my shtick so much, then maybe at some point it's important to move along. So feeling connected to the mission, I think, is a very concrete ingredient to successful leadership. And then the last thing, sorry I'm talking so much, is I keep learning this lesson. We talk about how we keep learning. I'm 55 years old. Actually, I'm 56 in a couple days. And I keep learning this lesson. One day I'm going to learn it, maybe before I die, who knows. But, when I'm communicating, it isn't important what I want to communicate. When I just think about, well, this is what I want to say, and so I try and say it, those are my foibles. Those are the times where I'm like, I can't believe I just messed up this situation. What I need to do is say, how might I say this in a way that the person I'm communicating to is going to be able to hear the message that I want them to hear? And so it's that understanding others, it's listening to the other, having that relationship with the other, so that if I need to communicate something to someone else, I'm not thinking of my need of how I want to say this, but I'm thinking of what will help this other person, being who they are and coming from where they're coming from and having the priorities they might have in their position, how can I say this in a way that they might actually hear what I'm, wanting to communicate, so then we can further the conversation. And so I think that's another success tip for leadership, is always be thinking not just what do I want to communicate, but it might be what do I need to communicate, what's the message, but then how do I say that so this other person might actually hear it in the way that will move us forward and help us continue.
I'd like to add to what Kathy just said. Listening to others is very important. For me, it's a different point of view that I may not have thought of, and it makes me go, you got a valid point. I always think about when it comes to working with people, I love talking to people. My husband says I talk to everybody. I talk to people, quiet as I am, I like to talk to people. And so you find out a lot of things when you really listen to people. I'd rather listen to people than for me to talk. And I think about my daughter. Before she was born, I was a very regimented person. I think in black and white. It's an accountant tendency. So it is or it isn't. But when my daughter came along, she's artistic, and now I see the purples and the blues and the greens. And so I now value much more different perspectives, and you really need those when you're working with people, is to really listen to them and the different viewpoints, and I think that adds to the effectiveness of whatever you're doing.
Very nice, thank you. So I'm going to go back to Veritas, Unitas, Caritas. Veritas, in one way of thinking about it, is intellect and vision and truth. And I think people struggle with the vision part. It's like, where does that vision come from? If you're really lucky, it's divine intervention. And at Villanova, that could happen. It does happen. But a lot of it actually, it comes from hard work. It comes from being curious. Curious in your field. I wonder what's going on out there. I wonder what the best practice is. I wonder what somebody else has done when they face this situation. Curiosity and a lot of hard work. It also comes from having an imagination. Vision is imagination. So if you don't have the imagination, if you don't work at your imagination, you're going to really struggle with the vision part of leadership. But where you probably won't struggle is Unitas, because we as women, we are community builders. It's what we do, it's in our nature. And I think we're really strong that way. I think we're very strong leaders in terms of organizational leadership and building a sense of community. So inside our college, we're a community, and we're still trying to figure out where every single individual fits in the community, because if you can plug someone into their passion, just get out of their way. Just get out of their way. But sometimes it's difficult to find that passion. So we've done a lot of experimenting. These guys are going to be nodding their heads. Yes, you have. A lot. But we're building a community internally, and we're serving a community externally. So communities are our strength. We should really be building on that. And the last is caritas, which could mean caring. In our case, it means caring, but it also means service. And as a leader, it's our job to serve. So if your big thing is getting your name on the poster, it's not really a good motivation for leadership. That might be an outcome, it might not be an outcome, but we're there to serve. We're there to serve the people we work with, and we're there to serve our constituents. And I think that's another strength that women have. I think we're natural servers. So Veritas, Unitas, Caritas, we're good at 2 out of 3 naturally, and we can work on the first one.
And I want to just follow up real quickly, because we're talking here about creativity and imagination and needing to have those skills. And I know sometimes when I'm talking to people, they say, well, I'm not imaginative or I'm not creative. And people seem to think this is some kind of inborn thing that either you have or you don't have. And I just want to make sure everybody in this room knows that's not true, right? You can work on your creativity. You can work on imagination. It's not something that's a static skill. There's a lot of ways to develop that. So if you're one of those people who sits around and goes, well, I'm just not imaginative, there's This way, if you want to develop that skill, you totally can, and we've got a lot of places here, actually at Villanova, that really emphasize this, and if people haven't been down to the Idea Accelerator in Falvey and looked to see what they're doing there in the ICE Institute with innovation and creativity, I'd really encourage people to get involved with that, and that's a great way to build up those skills.
I think that's a very good point. And I had an employee, I was speaking about this very same subject this week, and she said, I'm just not that creative. And I said, really? Because on Facebook, you posted 20 recipes this week. 20 recipes. Tell me you're not curious. And she said, well, when I'm interested, bingo. So, right?
Yeah.
So you have to work at it. You really have to work at it.
So if each of you were to offer one recommendation, I don't like to use the word advice, but one recommendation for us as far as leadership is concerned, what would it be?
I'll go first on this one. It's something I think we all struggle with, and that's being honest with ourselves, being absolutely, baldly, completely honest with ourselves. Who am I? And where is my passion? If your passion isn't at work, that's okay. It's just you're not going to probably progress. So where is your passion? What are your strengths? Be completely honest with yourself and then build from there.
I guess I would say get involved. If you think you want to be a leader and you think there's things you want to get involved in them. Don't wait for somebody to come and invite you to do this. Like I said, I was the one who talked about volunteering to help out with something. Find out where your passions are and then volunteer to get involved with that, and the leadership will develop from there.
And connected to that, don't be afraid to fail. I have learned my biggest lessons from things that did not work. When things are going fine and it works, you don't stop to question it. When it doesn't work, then you stop and question it, and that's when you learn, and that's when you grow. Don't take this at the highest level. Don't take the big, giant public project to be your first thing to learn to fail on. Choose these things wisely, but don't be afraid to fail. So, as Amy said, volunteer to do something. If you really think, I could really mess this up bad and it's a big, giant public thing, then don't volunteer for that. But volunteer for the one where you could make some mistakes. Volunteer for the thing where there's a co-chair or a co-presenter or somebody else that you can partner with and learn from as you move forward. But don't be afraid to fail. Don't say no, or don't sit back and wait because you think, I don't really know how to do that. My first job in HR was as the head of the department. Talk about walking into something. But I wasn't afraid to make a few mistakes. I did everything I could to learn what I had to learn. Now, I don't recommend that everybody does that, but I had a safe environment to do it. In my bio, Helen talked about a mentor, and it was this mentor who had given me this opportunity. And I had even said to her, are you sure that you want me to do this? You know that I haven't run an HR department before. She said, I know, but you don't need to have run an HR department. You can learn that. She said, what you have are the qualities that I need in this job right now, which is someone who builds relationships, treats people kindly, looks in the big picture, experiments with how things go, communicates well, builds relationships. It was all of those soft skills. She said, you'll learn the other stuff. I'm not worried about that. So I said, okay. And I went, and it worked out because she understood I was going to make mistakes. I understood I was going to make mistakes, but they weren't the end of the world. So maybe take that on a smaller scale is what I'd recommend, but absolutely take on assignments where you have that thought like I had of, are you sure? Because the only way you're ever going to be sure is to step into it and do it.
So I'm going to piggyback just real quick on that. They've done studies when there's job applications out there, job postings, right? And men will apply for a job when they've met about 50% of the requirements. And women wait until they have more than 100% and still want somebody to come and ask them to volunteer to do this. So you need to, like you said, take that risk. It's okay to put yourself out there and know that most of the people, or a lot of the people who are applying for the job, don't have all the qualifications, and that's okay to take that risk.
I would say that if you know what your passion is, it will take you places you never thought you would be. You will work with people you never thought you could work with. You will find resources. If you're the type of personality, you don't like to ask for money. When you're passionate about something, you will hit everybody up for money. I think understanding what you want to accomplish is key in motivating you for what you want to, it's a motivator for leadership.
My tidbit, this might be a little esoteric, but I actually believe this so strongly. Somewhere in high school, I was exposed to Plato, and the famous quote that I'm sure everybody's familiar with, of the unexamined life is not worth living. And I actually think that's your number one, that's my number one tip, and that's my number one mantra, to know myself. And I think it's consistent with what everybody has said here, because in knowing yourself, it leads you to all these places that everybody else has said. And to be intentional in choices that I make about my life, and to think about the choices that I'm making and where that may or may not lead me, and to take that leap of faith. But when you do that, sort of knowing you're taking that leap of faith, it feels okay, and it lets you say, I don't know, and opens you up to continuing to learn, because you sort of assume you don't know everything. So that self-reflection, self-examination, being intentional about everything that you do, which when I'm on my third episode of Charmed is very difficult to figure out how I'm being intentional about watching that. But that's my own private. But there's days that you need that, to decompress or relax. So, but that thought that everything you do, whether personal life, private life, going to the authenticity, is something you've reflected on and that you feel like is part of who you want to be and what your values are and what you want out of your life. And I think if you live in that paradigm, it actually helps you be successful and helps you. One of the questions that had been given ahead of time was, what made you decide to pursue leadership? I never, in all honesty, made any decision to pursue leadership. When I would go to workshops and they'd be, where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years? I always got up and went to the bathroom, because I thought, I don't really know where I'll be in 5 years or 10 years. And for me, that was okay. I know other people setting goals is really helpful for them to get somewhere. So again, that's where each of us is different. But that idea of being intentional, thoughtful, and self-reflective at every turn of your life, and really every day of your life, I think is my tip for ultimately being successful and being a leader, whether that's in a positional leadership or just in whatever circle you're in, positively influencing others, having others follow you, as Ellen said.
Now, everyone has taken my tips. But I was thinking, and as you look at becoming a leader, I think one of the things that really, for me anyway, and maybe none of you are like this, but my mind kind of gets going, and I want to say what I'm thinking, and I want to go, and I've really had to learn, sit back and listen. As a leader, you've got a lot of really smart people. If you've done your job right, you've got a lot of really smart people around you, all my folks there, and sit back and let them tell you what they think. Listen to what they have to say. Ultimately, I have to make a choice and have a decision. But if you can take the time to listen, take the time to ask questions, and not feel that you need to show everyone what's going through your mind the whole time, I would really encourage you all to do that, because it has, as I have worked on it and gotten, I hope, better at it, I think that's something that has really served me well.
Sadly, we are out of time. Actually, we are over time. And are there any questions or comments that anyone from the audience would like to share with us at this time? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
So for a lot of us in the room, I think we're probably at, an assistant or associate level where we have, the autonomy to make some of our own decisions and take initiative, but ultimately we're following a very set plan or set goals. When you reach the position of a leader where you're the one setting that strategic vision and really setting a plan, how do you shift your mindset to make decisions where, you really have a lot of options for different ways that you could take your department? But how do you sort of make those decisions and avoid that feeling of self-doubt or whether you're doing it the right way or wrong way?
I'll take that one. I've done a lot of strategic plans, and I think as you look at that, in my mind, if you've done the work right, you've brought all these different ideas and approaches from people around you. And as that happens, for me, it becomes very clear as you put plans together or however you want to move forward, it's very clear, here's the direction we're going in. And as long as you're clear and you've gotten all this information, it's for me very easy to then make a decision because you know exactly what direction you're going in. So I think for me, it's a matter of getting a lot of input from people, looking at what is it you want to accomplish, and then it makes the decision for me very easy. I don't know how any of you feel.
And don't waste your resources worrying about, am I doing it the right way?
Yeah.
Nobody cares how it got done. They only care that it got done. So even when you're the director or the associate vice president or the vice president or even the president, there is some structure already there. So you're not sitting there all by yourself in a vacuum thinking about where am I taking this? There's still always a we. Where are we going and what is my part in that? So don't waste your time and effort and energy on am I doing it right? Just look at what is the goal. Where am I going and how do I get there and how do I bring these people with me? That's what a leader is. So don't worry, am I doing it right? Am I doing it the same way Kathy does it or the same way Linda does it? It doesn't matter. So do it the best way you know how. Understand you're going to make mistakes. Understand you're going to learn from those. Understand that means the next time you're going to do it better. So just as, as others have said, you know where you're going. And if you have the right people with you, you'll get there. And don't worry about how you're going to do that. Do that in whatever way makes sense for you to do that.
I think there's one other piece that I would say is communicate, communicate, communicate. Let whoever you're working for, let the people who work for you, talk to them and let them know what you're doing. The more they can become part of that vision, and then you don't get this place where, oh my gosh, what if I made this decision? I did it all on my own. I'm in this place by myself. The more you can have that and you're like, oh yeah, this is where we were going. So certainly communicate with folks. I would encourage you all to do that.
Okay, we'll take one more question, but remember that you have a chance during lunch and during the network session to talk to our panelists to further discuss or ask questions.
Hi, Dean Gabriel's story really resonated with me with his daughter's question about the starting family. I have a 1-year-old daughter, and I think maybe others in the room might feel the same way. But up until I got pregnant, I was going full steam ahead and really trying to make them learn. And now I find myself slowing down a little bit because when I'm home at night, when I have some extra time, I'm exhausted and I'm trying not to burn out. So is there any harm in taking time and really just coasting? I want to be left behind, but I'm at the point where if I take on more, it's going to be really difficult. So I'm just wondering about that.
Right, I should let someone who has children answer that, but I'm going to briefly jump in. Because Madeleine Albright, maybe some of you are too young to know who Madeleine Albright is, but she was, I think maybe the first female Secretary of State, but she was Secretary of State. And she was a stay-at-home mom until she was in her 40s. And she became Secretary of State of the United States of America. So my sense is, your children are the most precious gift that any parent has, man or woman. And they are only little once. And so that, to me, that is the greatest gift that a human can have as mother or father. And I think men maybe sometimes miss out because they do not, and some women miss out because they don't balance differently. So, you know, maybe a person's 45 or 50 before they make the next step up, or somebody without children is 35 or 40. Like, so what, who cares? We're all gonna live to be 80 anyway. So that's sort of my 2 cents, but I do say that as a, you know, motherless? No, I have a mother. As a woman who is not a mother. None of us is motherless.
Maybe somebody who's a mother. Yeah.
Or else we would be maybe a clone, maybe one day there will be.
I'll talk a little bit. So I started here on the faculty with a 1-year-old. I gave birth to my daughter a year before I defended my dissertation with my PhD. So I had to go through that final year of finishing my PhD, defending my dissertation with an infant, and then started here on the faculty on the tenure track with a 1-year-old. Now, a lot of women have multiple children, and I know that's really challenging as well. I didn't juggle that, I just had one. But I did take time. I took time to be with her. I did not, you know, push ahead too hard. I felt that that was a really important thing. She's a senior in high school now, and I didn't take on significant leadership opportunities until I felt I was ready to do that, and it's totally fine. Everybody takes the path they want, and you're not going to get left behind. If you're good at what you do, believe me, when you're ready to take on responsibility, we'll be ready to give it to you. Seriously.
Absolutely.
You know, we're looking for good people all the time, and anybody who comes back, even if you've taken, I don't even think you're coasting, right? You're doing your job, you're working hard. That's not coasting. Don't put yourself down. Not trying to burn yourself out. That's not coasting. That's working hard. You've got a lot of things going on. So when you're ready, the opportunities will be there. There's no doubt about that.
I agree. And also, it helps if you have a mentor or somebody that's understanding. I know when I was in corporate and my daughter was an infant, and there were just bad mornings, and I'd be arriving at work at late, and I would always go past this one manager's office, and he'd look at his watch. And I said to myself, say something to me. You know? Say something and I'll let you have it. But then I got here to Villanova, and it was just a big change because I could be late, but my supervisor then knew that I would get the job done. And it might be at home while my daughter was taking a nap, and, you know, I could work on that memo or work on that project. But so it helps if you can find or work with people, or even explain to that individual that it may not get done how you want me to get it done, but it will get done. And so that was really helpful for me. And being here at a place that's nothing but students, I could bring my child to work sometimes, and I had like blankets and toys under my desk, and so when somebody would come in, like, sit under there for a minute, be quiet. So you find ways, and I never felt that because I was a mother that I couldn't advance or I couldn't do things.
And don't think of it as being additive all the time either. Look at the bigger picture. Are there things that could get dropped off? Are there things that could get delegated to other people? Are there things that could be deferred? Are there things that just really don't need to be done that you've been doing? So continually ask yourself, if I'm taking something else on, is there something else I can either take off or change somehow? And I completely agree with Amy. It's not coasting if you're coming to work every day and raising children at home. That's not coasting. Lose that idea completely. But think about the bigger picture and where other things might be able to give or wait or be delegated to somebody else, or just not be done anymore. I think we all do a lot of things that if we really asked ourselves, I probably don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to do it that way anymore. So, it's not always additive. I think women often just take on more and don't think about that, but it's not always additive. It's restructuring, reformulating.
So let us thank our wonderful panel. I'm sure you all agree we could sit here all afternoon and we would just continue the conversation. Let me close by sharing with you an article I just recently read. It had to do with teachers because I teach students who are going to be teachers. I remind them always that the most important vocation is the vocation of parent, and the second most important vocation is the vocation of teachers. The title of the article was 4 Powerful Traits of Teachers. And I'm standing here thinking that these 6 women have shown us today every single one of those traits. First trait, they have personalities. Not the same, they are all different, but they've all got one. They have a personality. Secondly, they have a presence. They know what they're talking about. Not just from education, but from experience, or from their own reflective time and contemplation. Third, they are prepared. Personality, presence, preparedness, and last, and 3 of them said this word, passion. We have 6 people here who I safely can say love what they do. And because of that, they do it so well. And you and I today had the benefit of their thoughts on leadership and how important it is for each of us. Let me remind you also that the etymology of the word educate does not mean to teach, does not mean to learn. It means to lead forth. So what we're asking everyone in this room today, in whatever capacity you find yourself, in whatever position you are holding, that you lead forth with the inspiration that we all receive from these 6 wonderful women. So we're very, very grateful to them for giving us their time, their talent, their wisdom, and everything. And certainly to Kathy and Amy for bringing this together. I don't know whether Cheryl came in. I wanted to recognize the Director of Women's, oh, there she is. Cheryl, stand up and be acknowledged, please. This is our Director, Dr. Cheryl Coleman. Timeless energy to our efforts. So we thank her very, very much. And thanks to all of you. You had such great attention. You'd be wonderful to have in class, actually. You'd be a great, great class of students. So thank you once again, and happy weekend to all. And I would like to end with just one very humorous slide that I found. So she's saying, I'm not bossy. I have skills, leadership skills. Understand? Now we understand. Thank you very much.